Ingrid Jensen, welcome to the Jazz Podcast.
Thank you, Rob. Great to be in London for a few minutes.
Yes, I know. Isn't Zoom
You're in
wonderful?
London, right?
We're in London, yes. Yes. So welcome to the show. We just listened to a bit of Foxytrot
Oh my
from
goodness.
yeah. And I was thinking about it because this track is from your album Invisible Sounds, which was for Kenny Wheeler. We had Norma Winston on our show last week, who another big connection with Kenny's as a vocalist. I thought it'd be a really nice way to start our show.
Yeah, I went to Norma's house with Kenny when I came to London many years ago.
Oh,
Norma,
wow.
it was a lovely place with their pond, with their lilies from Monet's garden.
Wow.
Yeah.
That like Monet's, like, how have they got
yeah, ask Norma about it. I don't know if it's true, but I believe it's true that they got the lilies that from that, wherever that garden was that Monet painted the lilies.
Wow. Isn't it funny? Sometimes you just like a special person like Kenny. Why wouldn't you have lilies, from
Lilies from Monet? Ooh, that might be a tune title to scratch on my list.
I think so. Put that down. That's a wonderful way to write
Monet. Yeah.
So
what's up? What do you want to know?
Yes, what we want to know. I tell you what I'd love to know. For listeners who are enjoying these first few minutes but deeply confused about what's going on, would you be able to tell us who you are?
My name is Ingrid Jensen. I'm a Canadian by trade, heart, soul, mind, but I've been in New York since 1992 as a trumpet player, composer, arranger, band leader, now a interim dean and director of jazz arts at the Manhattan School of Music, and various and sundry teaching things all over the planet, but mostly as a player. I have existed in this eastern area for quite a while. I was raised in Canada, raised in the West Coast.
You must be really enjoying it to have lived there since what would it be, 30 years now?
30, maybe longer.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, New York it's I wouldn't say it's always the most enjoyable place to exist, because it's got its ups and downs, and I'm thankful that I now have a position where I have a house outside of the city, and I'm able to have quiet. Aside from the leaf blowers, you may hear the little buzzing bees behind us. It's become nice. Leaf blowing season.
Of course.
But, no sirens or buses screeching outside my window, such as I had when I was really cutting my teeth in the 90s living in the city.
Okay. When did you move out of the city and get this nice quiet little patch that you have now?
Oh, our little patch of land when I had a baby.
Right.
Yeah. I think because I was brought up in the country on the ocean, very much like my husband as well. We were brought up around trees and water, and something about the concrete jungle freaked us both out when we brought another human into the world. So we did everything within our powers to find that balance. We're less than an hour from the city, so we can live the whole spectrum of life here. We're really lucky.
That sounds fantastic. It's really, like, in London, everything's an hour away, so you wouldn't have to you'd have to justify it to us. That's like, you're probably still pretty central if you're an hour away.
Yeah, right.
So let's talk quickly about Kenny. Just because we started the show with it, obviously he's a Canadian who lived in London most of his life, and we want to claim him as our own. Do you ever feel any Americans, any New Yorkers kind of wanting to claim you as their own after so many years staying there?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I never thought of that. I would say no. And even worse, when I go back to Canada, I'm also a stranger in my own land. So I kind of happily exist somewhere up in the stratosphere, because because I'm such a, well, I mean, until COVID at least, but even now that I've started touring again, I feel that I really do have a sense of belonging to many nations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I have these Danish roots. I lived in Copenhagen for a while. I taught in Austria. I speak German. So I learned a lot in those years of living in Germanic land and, the Canadian roots and then being in the States.
Did you learn German for teaching in Austria?
I did, yeah, because I was having a really hard time connecting and communicating with my students who, back in the 90s there was less internet, there was less English TV, there was
Mm-hmm.
less exposure to the Anglo culture that we have in jazz that is, so based in using these descriptions of music in an English, or especially trumpet too. I was teaching trumpet and I was like, oh my God, nobody's understanding me. They're just nodding their head. And I'm thinking, oh, it's such an international language. I don't need to learn German. I can explain it with my ideas. Turns out you need to be able to communicate in the native tongue.
Wow.
So
Did you
yeah.
learn it once you arrived then, and you'd done a few months teaching and then decided that that would be something you would work on?
I taught for about a year and then I realized I was repeating myself too much. So I took like a crash course and learned some very basic German and then made sure that I was translating things in a way that the students could actually absorb the information and do something with it rather than nod their head and get 50% or 30% of it.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't speak fluently, but I do have a sense of how to communicate when it comes to teaching.
The trumpet, you play, there's a lot of I'm a saxophone player, so forgive my ignorance, but I think one of the commonalities we have is thinking about different vowels, different registers.
Mm.
Is that something you ever noticed? Did you teach that differently? Is it thought about differently if you're working on it in a different language?
No, that one is definitely the vowels for me is definitely sort of global, super global. And I think there are actually a lot of parallels between playing saxophone and trumpet with the vowels that people overlook. And especially when it comes to starting without tension and starting with like a real ho he ha he, ho hu da ki ki. We say a lot of you know funny sounding syllables that sound like our tongues are paralyzed, but they're actually designed to keep things more open. And from there comes all of the other articulations, the fancy triple tongue, double tongue, etc.
I wish I'd realized this younger, to be honest. I think I was about 15 or 16, and one of my teachers, a saxophone player called Rob Buckland, he would get to a certain point on his saxophone where he would then demonstrate to me that he could play any note with any fingering. And I was like, well, what's even the buttons for? How on earth is this possible? And it obviously it's all just tongue position. Yeah, but I think you on the trumpet, you guys are more in touch with your kind of technique in that regard, maybe.
I hope so.
Just offended.
That's my goal as a teacher, is to make it easier on folks rather than harder.
Yeah. So let's talk quickly about then invisible sounds, because we started the show with it. So was it something you decided to make after Kenny Wheeler? For the listeners who I've again confused and alienated, and I apologize. Kenny was an iconic composer and sort of trumpet flugel player. He was Canadian, like yourself, lived in London for most of his life, came over, I think, to be a postman after the Second World War, and thought that
wow,
when he chose between London and New York, he decided London would be a better bet as far as this. I mean, that story, that I think Kenny, I met him, he was about 85 years old, and he sort of told me this at a class at a college once, but I'm sure he came over as a postman. Wow. And then I know, it was amazing.
Glad he escaped the war.
Yeah, I know. That's the other thing. Sorry, I'm talking so much, Ingrid.
That's a podcast. That means both people talk.
I'll calm down in a minute. I saw Kenny play at the Pizza Express once, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And he said, I wrote this tune's called Mark Time. I wrote this for the birth of my son in 1957.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? 1950? That, like, that's a long time ago, you know, quite a life to have led. So
And that's a
Kenny,
pretty hip tune from the 50s too. I
yes.
always think of his, I have a very hard time attaching time spots, you know, like to his music, because his writing to me, I just was playing that the mark time. He, you know, when I went to Banff and Kenny was teaching there, he would come with trumpet trios and quartets, whatever. We would play those tunes, but he would arrange them for all three of us to play, or four, whoever was in the class. And he brought that one in, and I was like, this is so modern.
It's
50s.
amazing. Yeah, 57. I completely agree with you. It's, I guess it's the sign of any good writing, isn't it? When you look at it now
Yeah.
and it still seems like, oh, if you wrote this now, it would be cool. It would be so
Yeah.
like, it would still fit right in.
Amazing.
So how and when did you decide to make the album? Because obviously it's in Kenny's honor.
Yes, it's definitely in Kenny's honor. It was all fate and timing, and we do this in 2015. This saxophone player, Steve Trussler, who plays bass clarinet and clarinet on the record as well. Amazing musician. In Seattle, we both had a deep affinity to Kenny, and he had studied. Oh, where did he study? I can't remember. I don't think it was Banff, but it was somewhere else where he had connected with him. And we had a gig at a festival in Seattle, and we just had this crazy idea to record the band, because the band was so very strong, with Jeffrey Keyser on piano and Martin. We were at the Lionel Hampton Festival. That's what it was. We had the Lionel Hampton Festival, which is like the state over from Washington State. Little geography lesson there. And Idaho, where the potatoes come from. And we played in Idaho, and then we drove to Seattle, and we played 2 nights in a club. And then during the days, we recorded. So it was epic. It was like, oh my God, just my chops. Talk about endurance. I learned a little bit about what my endurance level was during those 3 days. But because of the way the timing of these, you know, having a chance to do the music live and then also be in the studio the same time, and then also be recorded by this wonderful NPR Jazz Night in America, this team, it just put us all in this really like go team go place where both Steve and I already had I had a lot of these arrangements already in place, but we or rewrites, whatever they are, and Steve had also had a bunch of favorite tunes of Kenny's he wanted to approach in a fresh way without ruining them. We hope we did that. That was our goal. Was like, let's put our vibe on it without, you know, distorting the message of his music, but honor it in that way. And and Kenny had passed, so it was our way of giving him some love from afar.
It's a wonderful tribute, and the fact that I'm just now, sorry listeners, holding up a picture of the album cover, which is like a lovely sort of gentle picture of Kenny, you know, like faintly marking part of the cover, which is just a really beautiful way of kind of like a nod to his playing, whilst, like you said, just kind of taking it in your own.
Yeah.
Is it?
I have it on LP.
Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that.
It's so gorgeous.
Oh,
yeah.
wonderful.
Well, Whirlwind, let's not forget Whirlwind Records.
Yeah.
They're such an amazing label. Mike was very supportive of us in this project as well.
Yeah.
And the artists that did the photography shoot, the photographer and the graphic designer, really, I feel that they really got it too. It wasn't just like, you know, random picture.
Yeah.
But let's find a way without being corny to tie it all together.
You're right, that is beautifully done. It's very like subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you.
So a quick question then about this. Did it feel different doing an album where obviously you're playing and improvising, but you've not composed the tunes and you've had somebody else play them already? Does that make it harder or easier? Did it ever enter your mind?
What do you mean somebody else play them?
Sorry, that was really unclear. Because it's Kenny's music as opposed to your music.
Right.
Did it change the way you approach the pieces?
Well, it it's sort of, these are my, like my, some of my core band members and family, like my husband on drums, and my my best friend from college, Jeff Keezer, on piano.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually doesn't matter what we play at this point. Martin
Right.
Wind on
Okay.
bass, great technician, listens his butt off. So it was more just like, what's, I think the best way to explain this is to tell a story about Mark Turner. You know who Mark Turner is, the tenor player.
Saxophone. Yeah.
When we were, when I was living in the city in the 90s, we'd play sessions at people's houses. I brought a bunch of Kenny Wheeler tunes one day. And afterwards, Mark was just like, I never heard of this music, this man and his music. This is incredible. These are like the greatest contemporary standards ever. I was like, yeah, we play these all the time in Canada, you know, and in London, you guys too, you know, like everybody's
Yeah.
song, but my own is like All the Things You Are.
Yes.
It really is. Well, so it's coming from something else, isn't it? Kenny's always got some other secret tunes in there referencing. It's because he was so embedded in the language that we all knew. So for me, it's not like I'm now playing Kenny's music. It's just, this is Kenny's music, and it's, let's not ruin it. Let's put our vibe on it and see what happens without trying too hard. So just messing around with the vamp. I mean, doing the vamp of Foxytrot in a different meter, just putting a little hiccup in it was one of my little twists there. And
I love that, because it's such a great start to the album. You kind of start quite open and free, and then wham, you know, when I first time I listened to it, I was like, oh, here we go. It's fantastic.
Well, also, you know, Rob, the other thing is along the lines of what we always say about a good tune. It's like, if it's a great tune, you can play it in any meter, in any tempo. And in that sense of that tune, it's like, well, let's play it in 7 for a chorus. Somebody can blow in 7, then somebody can blow on the vamp. So it has, Kenny was like, through composed master and so economical with his writing. He would take something, you know, and just write a chorale, and then the chorale becomes the tune, and then the tune becomes another part of the tune, goes into 3.
Yeah.
So, you know, which was another, that was a song I didn't actually know that well, was where is it? The one we did on there. Old Ballad. It's so beautiful. Steve hit me to that one. I had not checked out Old Ballad. And we started playing on that, and just everything is always mind-blowing when it comes to Kenny's music.
It is, isn't it? It's really interesting to me that you talk about the meter thing as well, because my old saxophone teacher, Stan Saltzman, played a lot with Kenny.
Yeah.
And when I was at college, with that tune you mentioned, Everybody's Song But Not My Own, I think the first time I sort of played in like a small ensemble that Stan was coaching, he was like, guys, let's do this, but we're playing it in 3. You know, obviously just like second nature to experiment with it and move it around, and obviously the students try and cope with it and realize how much, like, I suppose that they're like standards in the sense that you can easily change something and keep the essence of the tune, like you say.
5-4-6, that's the one I was also thinking of, where he starts with the chorale, and then it's got, you know, all these different meters. It goes into 3, goes into 4. It's the one with the burning Jeff Keezer and John Recon.
You must have been delighted when you realized that Mark Turner hadn't played these tunes before, and that you'd been given the opportunity to introduce him to them.
It was a good feeling. I'm like, yeah, I'll give you some more of those. I got a bunch of them, you know. And then, you know, and then I think Kenny and him may have connected later on in life too, because Mark was just such a fan after he started to check out his music. So, you know, New York has a certain sound to it, and if you get, at least back in when I started out in the 90s, there was a certain, like, yeah, I don't know if, you know, if that music is going to make it into the mainstream, but now it's like Kenny Wheeler tunes are as important as Joe Henderson tunes, as they should be, as in the field of study. We need to study all the great composers. Yeah. Especially the ones that could play. And when you can get their tunes and hear them play on their tunes, it's like, oh, how doesn't get any better than that.
No, it doesn't. It's really, really something, isn't it? When you think of how well he would be remembered if he hadn't written anything, just for his improvising.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. You know the studio you recorded that album in?
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at the like, there's like a NPR sort of documentary online about it, but it looks like it's all got like lovely like stonework inside of the studio. What's it like to play in there in a room that like, it doesn't look necessarily like it was built as a dedicated, you know, a lot of studios are very dry and lots of sound installation, but this looked really like almost like an art gallery kind of.
I think it's where Nirvana recorded and some of those Seattle grunge bands. I don't know if you found out about that, but yeah, it's more of a rock. It was a super rock studio for rock music, and but it was great. The main room it looked like it would sound cold, but it was actually great. And
that's what interested me watching the video. It
had such a vibe. It had a real vibe.
It looks like no other studio I'd seen before.
Yeah.
Well,
it's in somebody's house. It's like a house and it just keeps going into this mountain, and then you come out and you look at the ocean and go, oh, look at that. That's lovely. Let's go back into our stone castle and play a bunch of hard chords after playing a gig the night before.
I love studios that are like at someone's house. I think that's a really nice place to go and work. So how did you come to find the trumpet as your kind of musical sort of partner in crime?
I actually didn't. I wanted to play the trombone because my voice is low, but my older sister had picked the trombone, and we didn't get along very well at the time. As teenage girls tend not to. Teenage sisters, specifically. So I was denied my first request.
Who by? By her?
By my parents.
Okay.
My mom and the band teacher specifically. They were like, no, you should probably play the trumpet.
Right.
So I made my best friend play the trombone so I could play her trombone at her house in secret. Which I didn't end up doing because I was like, oh, well, there's the trumpet. I'll just do that. Whatever. Yeah. Music, whatever vessel I get to project my my mind full of swinging music that my mom brought me up on was just whatever it was. And I realized later on, I was like, well, I guess I did listen to a ton of Louis Armstrong when I was a kid. It wasn't like, oh, who's Louis Armstrong when I started playing. It was more like, oh, that's right, this is that guy's instrument. Let me figure out how to get his songs out of it.
That's really interesting, that you kind of have this awareness that everything you've heard is going to help you.
Yeah.
So was this just the music your mum was listening to, or do you think she was trying to kind of help you have a very broad pair of ears?
No, she didn't give a shit. She was like, I don't care what you guys are into. This is what I love. And you might as well just get over it, because I don't want to hear any kind of bad pop radio in our house while you're growing up. Because pop music kind of stressed her out at the time. She didn't like it. It just was like, in her face. And so she had a great record collection. And the stereo was, sacred in the house. It was the sacred place in the living room where you go and put on an album for dinner. We always had music at dinner. It was not like silence or a TV. You know how some people have the TV going? I can't stand that.
Yeah.
But it's music. It's funny, fast forward to now, my husband is obsessed with this audiophile world, and he's about to build some speakers that are like, they go for 10 grand each, but he's going to build them from scratch. And we're getting our whole stereo system to a point where it's going to be, like killer.
This is going to be great.
I know. Especially since that's the sound I grew up with, and my ears were covered in big stereo down to these compressed MP3s now. That I find myself relaxing when I hear a good stereo.
Do you think you'll be putting vinyls on it as well?
Oh yeah. No, it's all about the vinyl.
Yeah,
it's all totally about the vinyl. I mean, the CDs sound better too, but the vinyl's gonna just be killer.
Yeah. I agree that does sound amazing.
Yeah. If you're ever around Westchester, New York, come on by.
Oh, do you know, it's funny you say that, because we've had a really great run of guests this month, and in the start of March we talked to Sonny Rollins, which
Oh
was
my gosh.
that was incredible, Ingrid. That was absolutely a remarkable moment in my
Wow.
life. One of those moments where I was like, I don't know how I'll ever top this in anything I do, because
Sonny was on Zoom?
no, he doesn't have a smartphone, he doesn't have a computer. So I had his home phone number, and they said to me, call him at 6 p.m. in London time on Friday night, and he's well up for a chat. Just have a chat about whatever you want. And so I like put his number into my iPhone, and then when the phone started ringing, it was like I was more nervous than I'd ever be on stage, for sure, you know. And the fact that we couldn't see each other, or you couldn't like text even beforehand to be like, all good, you ready to go, it kind of made
Old
it
school.
very old school. So I recorded him on speakerphone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I can't wait to hear this.
It was really, really interesting. And also for him at 91 to just give us so much like energy and deep thinking, and so Sonny was very generous to agree.
He's up in Woodstock, right?
Yeah, that's right. Remember, when I found from his area code, you sort of get a rough idea of where someone is, and I remember thinking it sounds somewhere like very like slow paced and relaxed, you know.
Yeah, very cool.
Wow,
I'm
so sorry, great. I've completely forgotten why I had brought that up.
Because I asked you all the guests you've had. You said you've had amazing guests.
I did say that, and I had a good reason for bringing it up, and I've completely forgotten what it is.
To make me up my game.
Not at all.
I can get my dog to start singing if it helps. I don't think it'll be as hip as Sonny Rollins, though.
That would be cool. That would be some dogs do love to sing along, don't they, when you play?
He sings all on his own. He's got his own thing. He's a special breed.
Oh, bless. I did see his tail a minute ago.
You saw his tail? Donnie, where are you? Come here. He disappears. Anyways, carry on.
Sorry, I can't. I'm sorry. I've got no idea why I was telling you, except that it was really exciting and really good fun, and that we've had a great month. I'm trying to think so that I can link it back into why I ever brought this up and edit out this bit in the middle where I've got no idea what I was saying.
Talk about Sonny Rollins. I'm sure I led you astray. We can rewind back. It was something to do with my stereo listening, my mom, my history of my listening and the trumpet.
That's right. And then I said we'd have some great guests on this month. Well, for whatever reason, it's gone forever. But yeah, it was fun to sit and talk to him. And he's kind of he's just the kind of person that is almost so well known. I can't believe he's real. He's a guy. Yeah. Like, you know.
Amazing.
Yeah. So no, sorry. Let's carry on again, and I'll just concentrate and behave.
You're doing great.
Oh, that's very kind of you. That's very kind. I sort of have loads of notes, but I try to not use them, because then you end up kind of on the train tracks.
Right.
More fun to just go wherever you go, isn't it? Oh, here's a question for you. How did you get involved with Maria Schneider Orchestra?
As many things in my life are unplanned and not necessarily sought after. You know how some younger players are like, I knew I wanted this gig and I went after it and I got it. I was more just, following the current of the music I loved and was hearing that I connected with. And at the time in New York, in the 90s, it was like 93, between 93 and 99, even 2000, 2010. There was a lot of clubs. There was a lot of music going on. And a lot of people would play for nothing. Maria's band, that band played every Monday night at a club called Visionis. And I think the pay was $23 per person, something like that, I don't think it ever went up, probably went down.
Deflated.
Once in a while, we'd find a t-shirt backstage and steal it, a Visionis t-shirt. But I was with Rick Margitza in Vienna when I was living in Vienna. He was there because one of his friends lived in Vienna, this guy, Jeff Bedreau. And we just played a lot. And I think one of the freeing things about living in Austria was that I had left New York during the early 90s, like 89, 90, when it was really tough. Everybody was, tough as in cutting edge, but also people were kind of stressed financially because there wasn't a lot of support for things. And so I left the city to Europe, and I was able to kind of be more me, play free jazz, play funk, play a lot of straight ahead, hang out with Art Farmer. I just really found kind of a sanctuary within the culture of Europe. And Art Farmer and I became very good friends. My friend Clark Terry was there all the time playing, and I'd sit in with him, and that's how I got my record deal, and of all things.
Wow.
So I got a record deal because Clark Terry had me sit in, and the manager of the band he was touring with Benny Golson and Harry Sweets Edison and Louis Armstrong's the drummer. I mean, it was just crazy. And Lionel Hampton, they were touring a lot over there at the time, and they were just like voting for Ingrid.
That must have been fun.
Very encouraging. Oh, it was amazing. It's amazing. But Clark was, he was one of once he heard me play when I was living in New York, he took me under his, wing of support. Mm-hmm. So wherever he was, I had to sit in. So anyways, long story short, I was living in Austria and playing a bunch of different gigs and sessions and connecting with musicians in Europe, and then American musicians who would come across the pond to work in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, France, etc. And Rick Margitza was one of those musicians. And when I came back to New York to resettle after these 3 years in Austria and with a record deal, and I was getting my feet wet in the scene, one night they needed a sub. Tim Higgins got stuck in traffic and couldn't make it. Just couldn't make it across the Jersey River Bridge.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting at home in my shorts with my hair in a scrunchie, writing music for my first record. I was like, I gotta write music. Freaking out. Just like, New York. I'm back, but it's scary, but it's amazing. But everybody's so killing, and I don't know. And I get this phone call. It's like, 10 to 9. The band starts at 9. And Rick's like, Ingrid, get down here. Get down Visiones. Maria needs a sub. You'll be perfect. I told her you can play. And so I jumped in a cab. I was a few minutes late, and I got on stage, and Rick was soloing. I'll never forget it. He was playing this burning solo, and then Maria's just like, go! Just go through the band. And the club was like, the size of my bedroom here. It was so small. And I pushed by him. I was like, sorry, dude. She told me to go in.
That's such a New York thing. Like,
funny.
Where you have to push someone in the middle of a solo to get
out of my way. You called me. He later forgave me, but it was just like, one of those nights you don't forget.
Yeah.
And I'd heard the band before, and I was like, yeah, I hear my sound in that music. Definitely I hear me contributing.
Was there a moment when she said to you, do you want to get more deeply involved in this? Or did that just kind of happen by itself?
New York in that time, again, I don't know if it's so much the same now. I don't know what the scene is anymore. But back then it was, there's this whole circle of people calling each other to sub for certain things that they knew stylistically they could contribute. Right. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, he reads okay, he'll be okay. It's more like, no, it has to be a specific fit for specific projects.
Right.
So, just over time, Tim got busier and was doing a lot of stuff overseas. And the spot opened up, and there I was for a good 10, 15 years, 12 years. Yeah. Wow. I haven't played with the band in 10 years.
Right. Did you stop because you wanted to focus on other things?
My life just took a different turn. Having a baby changed a lot of stuff. Not really seeing as much space for my own projects. Mm-hmm. So that contributed a lot to the shift there. It was a very organic thing. Oh, is that your baby?
Yeah, she's just nearly 5 months
she's
old.
Gorgeous. Ooh, she's
very
beautiful.
Cute. I know, it's got a great little face.
Oh, what's her name?
Evie.
Evie
May.
Lovely, congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. But yes, I now understand in a way I wouldn't have before just how much your brain is never the same again.
Yeah, it changes everything, right? Your priorities shift dramatically. And I'd had a really intense time towards the end of the run with that band, where a lot of stuff went down. I had the baby, we were building a house, there was a lot of crazy other crazy things going on, and the change of trajectory was, in the end, very good. Very good.
Can I ask you one really specific question about the time you spent? There's a solo one of my favorite tracks is on this album of Maria's called Sky Blue, and it's the first track, The Pretty Road. Is over 13 minutes long. I reckon the trumpet solo is good 7 or 8 minutes of that, and I often think to myself, when I listen to it without the improviser, the music would feel so different. And it's not that common, I don't think, with a large ensemble or big band to have such a long time. You're almost improvising as if you're in a small band in the big band setting. How did you feel as an improviser being given so much space? How do you even go about pacing a solo that you know is going to last 7 or 8 minutes?
Well, it helps that the orchestration around you is pretty good, right? The orchestration, the writing, the playing, the musicians, the nuance of all the material is never the same, right? Each time it's completely different. But on that particular piece, it was painfully naked, right? And especially in the beginning of it. And when we were working it out, it was all about trying to find a way to weave through those big open spaces, which are, kind of do with the prairies, right? She was trying to create it. She was creating a vision of the landscape she grew up seeing, which was flat, right? The Pretty Road was like a little tiny hill in the middle of all this flatness. And it was without the electronics, it was really difficult to do. So that was how that became part of my whole world too, was I really had to learn shed this new instrument called delay pedal, volume pedal, reverb, etc. Find those sounds that were supportive of that orchestration.
So it was for this project that you started using electronics more in your playing?
Specifically that tune. I actually had not ever used pedals up until that point. I had just done a record before that. I have a record of mine called At Sea, which was, just my own independent production I did on Artist Share. And we did a bunch of layering of some stuff. I was like, I want to put some more layers of me on this kind of, spacey little ocean piece. And the more I did it, the more I was like, man, I think I need to get some electronics to do this. I think I can do that. But it was more like the idea itself created the need for the pedals versus bringing the pedals in to make up for something that wasn't there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because a lot of times I think people go to electronics, myself included. I'll, on gigs, I'll be like, oh, let me just put the pedal on. Oh shit, I forgot to create something first. It's like, oops. little too much wah-wah too soon. So, it's all idea based, the resulting in orchestral sounds. And there's another record I did on Whirlwind called the Infinitude Band, which is with Ben Monder and my sister. And that band is really about...
But not your trombone playing sister.
No, my sister Christine, saxophone composer, great musician. Yes.
I'm sorry to describe your older sister as your trombone playing sister.
Well, she is a trombone. She plays now slightly, a little bit, but she also sells houses in Mexico and surfs every day and has a life that we all wish we had in the sun.
Yes.
But...
that sounds awful.
Yeah. It's horrible, right? So long story short, there was a lot of discussions about how to make that work.
Yeah.
And to bring in the accordion with Gary Versace was also my idea, because I'd heard Gary play and I was thinking, well, he could, she was searching for some kind of sustained sound that would be different than using...
and that came from you saying you should try the accordion, you should get this guy in. Because that's an iconic part of the sound of the band.
It is now. Yeah. And it was all about registers. Like, I need something up high and shrill, and not shrill, but pretty up there, like a violin. I was like, Gary plays accordion. I just heard him play some shit. It was amazing. And so that's how he made his way into the band. And now he's playing piano.
That's amazing. I did not know that. I feel like had I planned these questions on purpose, you'd be really impressed. And yet I've sort of stumbled into it all blindly and backwards.
Not a lot of people actually know that story, but it's true.
Wow. That's really interesting.
It's a fact and a trivial piece of jazz history.
Yes, it is. It is.
Delay pedal and an accordion. There you go. Yeah. Start a band with those two.
Get to work, people. Did you find it took a long time to learn the pedals to make it kind of feel? Does it feel quite second nature now using?
Yes. Now it feels very second nature. There's always more stuff to learn and more programming and new ways to manipulate my sound. But the fun part is it's all based on my sound, not a trumpet. Oh, let me play a trumpet through a pedal. It's more like what am I doing with the manipulation in my own acoustic sound organically, and then what's happening, and then from there it just unfolds into its own beast or whatever. The looping thing is super fun. Obviously, as a person that creates and writes, any of us kids love to loop. Little kids, like babies, they're like, let me go in the loop machine. It's just fun. It's like, ooh.
There's a lovely thought that it's evolved with your family, that they kind of must have gotten a kick out of hearing.
I've even looped the dog. Are you kidding? It's so fun. Come on, Donnie, get over here. That's what loopers are for. Just to repeat a fun idea and then start messing with it.
It's absolutely fantastic.
But I also choose musicians who appreciate that and are not scowling at the electronic aspect. They're just like, oh, that's neat. Let's play with that too. We can play fine just in a trio with trumpet, bass, and drums, but there's also so many other places we can go into the Dr. Seuss world of exploring if we're all listening and open to creating.
Yeah, it goes both ways though, I suppose, doesn't it? Because if you as an improviser overdo it and use it with a lack of taste, then I guess it's kind of scary for everyone else.
Yeah, if it's played from a place of isolation.
That's a wonderful way to describe.
Soloing, like there's soloists and then there's people who just play together. I prefer the latter, get in the middle and play from the middle of the sound rather than just the one person that is in control of the direction of the moment. It's much more interesting when you let go of that concept and just play together.
Yes. Yeah. That's an amazing thought to have shared with our listeners. Thank you for that. I
think the listeners appreciate it too. The audience is part of that whole experiment. It's a mad experiment, right?
Yeah.
They might come to a show and go, oh, I'm here to hear that post-bop trumpet player Ingrid Jensen play her Woody Shaw licks. I'm like, well, they may not sound the way you were hoping, but they'll be in there. They'll still be in there, right? The language we don't lose language. We are hopefully constantly expanding upon it with other facets of wordplay / music play.
Yeah. What have you got in the bank of ideas for the near future? Have you got any plans?
Well, I'm working with a band right now, which I'm writing for, so it's nice to write for that. Playing with my sister is great too. This band Artemis, with Rini Rosnes. It's kind of a more straight ahead thing, but I actually do use my electronics in that band too. And we're on Blue Note, and we're going to do another record on Blue Note. So that's always interesting. So writing really for, sextet and personalities in that sextet is where I'm putting my focus right now.
Right. If you're on Blue Note, do they give you a time limit to write and release, or are you just left alone to get on with it in your own time?
We have rehearsals and the gigs and then the recording session booked. So it's kind of an unspoken deadline.
Yeah.
But things could still develop during the nice thing is we have a week at a club before we record.
Oh, wow. Where is that?
Birdland in the city.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
That's
that'll
what you want.
be, yeah, it's the best, right? To just go
Mm.
and play hard and then go in the studio and record after.
I think as a musician, there's no greater privilege, is there, than playing every single night.
It's the best.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ingrid, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been so great to talk to you. Before we finish, I'm going to play. I'm a bit scared to pronounce this because I can't pronounce it. Ecolia?
Oh, echolalia.
Echolalia. I knew
Yeah,
whatever I
that's
tried, it
that.
wouldn't be
Talk
right.
about looping, right? That's your daughter is doing echolalia. She's learning. Look up the true definition. It's really cool. It's all
Oh,
this
wow. Okay.
speech patterns. So the child hears you go, "Hello,"
Mm.
and then later on in life they'll say, "Hello." They'll copy you.
Oh, man, that's amazing. I mean,
Echolalia.
she's 5 months old, but her word association is so powerful.
Yeah, they're
Which
really smart. Just don't screw up the brain. Don't traumatize them at any point. They just keep learning.
it's scary. It's like you just don't want to do anything wrong ever,
Oh my God. It happens. You do things wrong as a parent, and that's the
Mm.
hardest thing to get over. But to not do, to like hold yourself accountable and know that they are the ones who are they're hip to everything is I think a good place to parent from.
Okay, this is wonderful life advice.
You'll be fine. You're gonna nail it.
Tell us a bit about this tune before I press play. This is in with your Infinitude band we were just
Oh,
talking about.
thanks. I love this song. This is Ben Monder's song, and he actually there's another version of him with Theo Bleckman singing it, which I highly recommend everybody checks out as well.
Mm.
And Christine and I are basically trying to be Theo with our saxophone and trumpet at the same time together, blending magically over Ben's insane guitar, angelic strummings with my husband on drums, John Weekon, and Fraser Hollins on bass. And this is another band we got to tour and do some gigs, and then we went directly in the studio. So I feel that we captured the essence of how we play as a unit in a lovely sounding studio in Montreal.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm going to press play. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We have had a fantastic time. This
oh my
is,
gosh.
Here we go, Echolalia.
Love it. Take care. Peace and love.